What are you having in your lunch from?
Okay,
Mm,
so welcome everyone. We're recording right now. Good evening. My name is Jody Woloshin. I'm the District 1 rep on the Board of Directors for Softball Saskatchewan. On behalf of Softball Saskatchewan, welcome to this next workshop that we're providing during the months of March and April in partnership with Sport Medicine and Science Council. Tonight we are happy to have Courtney Schell, certified athletic therapist, certified sport massage therapist, and registered massage therapist from Saskatoon, presenting the Sport Injury and Prevention for Fastball, Intervention with Neuromuscular Training Workshop. Courtney is currently the president of the Sports Medicine and Science Council and has been a consultant since 2011. And I'm confident that this will be a very informative workshop. With that, I will turn it over to Courtney.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking an hour of your time tonight to listen to this presentation. I've done a few of these presentations over the years. It's one of my favorite ones, mostly because I can usually get participants up and moving, and it's a very interactive presentation. So this is my third presentation doing it over Zoom, and it's certainly a different experience, but that basically sums up COVID for everybody. So I'm still really grateful that I can be here and share this information with you, and I'll try to make it as engaging as possible. However, I can't force you guys to all put your cell phones down and get up and do half of the stuff that I'd like you to do. So we are going to make the best of it, kind of go from there. So when I'm screen sharing, like I was just saying with Jody, I do have a trickier time. I can't look at my PowerPoint and see the chat at the same time. So if I miss something in the chat, or if I ask you guys to throw something in the chat, if you don't feel comfortable just speaking, I might just have to flip back and forth a little bit. If you guys would love to, I would love it if you could participate a little bit. And if you do, just take yourself off of mute and tell us an experience or an idea that you have. If we have all 30 of us at the same time saying it, it might not work well, but I doubt that will be the problem. If not, for sure, throw it in the chat and I'd love to see it. So today we're going to talk about injury prevention in fastball, or I always call it fastball, sorry, but softball. I think that softball at times can get a bad rap saying, oh, it's just ball, which is funny because I played a lot of elite sports at a national and international level, and my biggest injuries were always in fastball playing. So I can vouch that it's a very high impact sport, and females especially are very aggressive, and there's plenty of injuries to see. So I was just reviewing this presentation yesterday as I was looking through some of these pictures that I posted up here, and I was zooming into this very first one, and I was like, hey, that catcher is Erin Cumstone. I don't know if you know anybody knows Erin. She's an Olympian and she's from Saskatoon, and actually I played ball with her or against her, got my butt whooped, and I played ringette with her. So it's kind of cool that there's like an actual Saskatoon athlete right there in the front of this presentation. I think I actually messaged her yesterday asking if there's how many well, I know that softball's not in the Olympics anymore, and she said there was only ever 3 female Saskatchewan athletes in the Olympics. So that's kind of a neat fact. So anyways, I'm making this presentation on behalf of the Sport Medicine and Science Council of Saskatchewan. It's a nonprofit organization that helps out a lot of different sports here in the province. It's an awesome association. If you guys need anything from first aid supplies to information on nutrition, sleep, concussions, just reach out to Trevor or Scott and they'll be happy to help you guys out. That usually goes through your coaches or your executive director, but if you even want to personally reach out, you're more than welcome. We have sport med physicians, ATs, sport PTs, sport chiros, sport massage therapists, and then of course a big strength and conditioning gamut of people. I think you guys have done a few presentations, is that right, Jody? Did you do a sleep one, and have you done the self-massage yet?
Not the self-massage. We did a sleep one the other night,
yep,
which is good.
Yep, the sleep one is awesome. And I know that Mitch Dahl reached out to me. He's doing a injury prevention on the shoulder in a few weeks here. So I just skim over the shoulder a little bit because he's going to give you a full hour in depth on the shoulder. So just so you guys know, there's more to come there. Here's a bunch more of the different programs and services that we provide to a lot of the different sport associations in the province. So like I said, tons of great stuff. Just a little bit about myself. Professionally, I go by Courtney Schell. My married name is Leavins. I played fastball for about 20-ish years. I went to nationals twice, westerns 2 or 3 times. I grew up in Tisdale and we moved to Saskatoon when I was right at midget age. So I had a pretty cool opportunity at that point to try out for some of the AA and AAA teams. It's obviously different now. I'm like almost 40, so things have changed in how things are ran in the province. But I love fastball. It was my favorite sport. I was always sad because it was such a short season, which is funny because now I think you guys go 12 months of the year, or you can if you want to. I was a catcher and left fielder. More recently, I have 3 little girls. They are 6, almost 5, and 2. And we are into T-ball and blast ball, which is awesome and painful at the same point. So I'm really excited to be out on the diamond with my kids and just enjoying the sport. Fastball is definitely a sport for life. You can play at any age. I am a certified athletic therapist. It's very similar to physiotherapy, except we normally work in hospitals. We focus mostly on musculoskeletal injuries, and you see us lots on the sideline. I'm also a massage therapist and a candidate in the Sports Massage Therapy Association. I do some strength and conditioning. I own a little company where I sell orthopedic braces and supplies. I work with an orthopedic surgeon. Of course, all that's slowed down with COVID, which is kind of a blessing in disguise, having a young family. I also work with the council, obviously, and we farm full time. So that is, you kind of marry a farmer and suddenly you actually work more full-time hours. You don't even realize it until you marry them. And like I said, we've got 3 little girls. This is my oldest at her sport day 2 years ago, because last year it was canceled and she was more excited about the bow in her hair than the actual ball game, but that's okay. She had fun running around with the kids. All right, so risk management is one of the biggest things when you're talking about injury prevention. Risk management can go for many things. Basically, that's a big word to say, what can we do to decrease or manage the risk to have an injury in sport? Pretty simple things that we can just think of right off the bat. I don't know if anybody can think of something. What do we do as athletes to decrease our injury in sport? You can throw it on the chat, or you can just throw it out there in video and talk.
You can stretch before doing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Holly, you pretty much nailed our whole presentation. That'll be the major focus of our presentation, is dynamic flexibility and stretching. I can just sign off if you want to take it away now. No, that's obviously a really big one. Another one, and it's changed significantly since I played, is equipment. Can anybody say some special equipment that you wear to decrease injury in your sport?
Compression sleeves.
Compression sleeves on your arms and legs. I see on both, or thighs. What else?
Fielder's masks.
Fielder's masks. So that is huge. We didn't have that. And I can show you some cool pictures of some things that's happened to me in my day. Not only for the pitcher, but also for the batter. We didn't have those 15, 20 years ago. What other things do you guys, what about a bat catcher? Is there certain equipment that they would wear other than the obvious face mesh and pads? Is there some different things that they wear?
For batters, there's like the thing you wear on your arm, kind of like an elbow pad.
Oh yeah, what's that called?
I don't know, sorry.
Jody, do you know what? I don't know what that's called, but yeah.
Elbow pad's good.
Elbow pad. What other things we can think about? So we nailed equipment, yes, for sure. Catchers sometimes wear knee savers. That was a thing, and they still sometimes do those things. The mask is a big one for facial protection. One of the things that we always need to think about in ball, especially being an outdoor sport, is our environment. I don't know if you've ever showed up to a tournament and it rained like for 3 days straight before you got there, and the diamond is just a disaster. So the environment that you're playing in, there's like big chunks and it's super soft, the shale's all loose. That's certainly dangerous. Training inside of a indoor facility where there's turf and you're used to running on grass, that changes the way that you run and the dynamics in your joints. That can cause a lot of injury actually in the knee. Does anybody else have any ideas? You guys are pretty good there. So we talked about the venue, the surrounding area. I don't know, there's this huge fastball stadium in Calgary that has like, I think it's 16 diamonds all in one. And there are these 4 little complexes and there's like fly balls all the time, like going into different fields and diamonds. That's a big problem for injury. I played with a girl once that got smoked on first base. She was actually looking into the infield, like what she should be doing, and a fly ball smoked her in the side of the head and had a terrible concussion. Those things are things to consider. Obviously your own medical history and any injuries that you've previously had, either in your sport or in another sport or just walking around. I'm just going to show you guys this video here. If you don't mind, I'm just going to stop the share and go to a different part. Have to make sure I share the right thing. I had a lot of fun looking at videos for this stuff. All right, so sometimes just injuries happen in the rules of the game. Just from being a part of the game, accidents happen. This is a really good example. Did you guys see that?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
So that's just a really simple thing. I don't know probably how many times that catcher and pitcher had practiced her ducking to get out of the way when a player is running to second. But she was just distracted. The umpire called the batter out because they hit the ball outside of the box. It's like a 10-second video. I'll show it again here. And she just wasn't paying attention.
Oh, and the throw down hit Ellish.
So she wasn't wearing a face mask. So that was nobody's fault. It's just simply an intense game. Somebody made a quick decision. Somebody thought something else. Injuries happen. They're pretty easy to happen. Sorry, just flipping back and forth here. So another one is just simply respecting the rules of the game. Sliding. Let's talk a little bit about sliding. You guys are all, what are the ages here, Jody? I think they said 14 to 19 years old.
Yeah, for players, I would imagine coaches those all the way from Timbits all the way up to U19.
Any age.
Yeah.
So my players out there, I'm assuming you guys are all sliding. You're all competitive players. Sliding, do we slide into all of the bases? I'm gonna stop this for a sec so I can see you guys. You can throw it on the chat too if you guys want. You try not to slide into first base. Some people do. There's a time and a place for it, certainly. Let's just talk a little bit about feet first versus head first. What base would you not go head first into? Or try not to, I should say. There could be a certain circumstances, but generally you would not slide head first into what base? Go ahead, Holly.
First base, probably.
First base. Anybody else? What about the catcher? You want to slide head first into the catcher? Probably not, unless you're doing like a backdoor rollover fancy schmancy slide, but I don't know if I'd want my face running into their shin pads or something if they were blocking, unless you're sliding around them and turning around onto your stomach. So that's just being coached really well. So our coaches, we would recommend, at least as a therapist looking at injury prevention, to not encourage your players to dive headfirst into a catcher. If anything, you want to slide around them or behind them, around them. That's something that you look into coaching. Why do we slide into a base? Do you guys do it to, and you can throw it on the chat if you want, everybody can see it here. I'll just do like an example. Everybody see that?
Well, when you're stealing a base, it's harder for them to like, because then they have to go down to tag you.
Exactly, Megan. That you nailed it, right? So like from an athletic point of view, like a competitive point of view, you don't want to get tagged. You don't want to get out. It's way faster to slide into a base. You can slow down, right? You can decelerate properly versus running as fast as you can and then like trying to slow down really fast on your feet. You'd probably hurt your knee, roll an ankle, pull a hammy or something like that. You guys take a look at this and tell me what you think.
I'm Lisa Fernandez, three-time Olympic gold medalist, and this
You can see that, right, Jody? Yeah.
is Ohio Sportsnet.
You got her! You got her! Nice job! Oh.
Just didn't slow down for a second there, right? Catcher did a good job, relatively good job of taking away home base. Let's just back up a wee bit. The player should have started to slide a lot earlier to slow down, or ran around her or slid around her and then rolled over onto her stomach. So part of it is just like, that's just ball. That's part of being a part of a back catcher. You have to figure out, you're going to sacrifice your body a little bit.
You got her! You got her! Nice job! Oh, she got us.
But she got smoked in the head there. So a big part of sliding is protecting yourself, but respecting and protecting the other players. Yes, Megan made a very good point. Like, you slide because you don't want to get out. And as a competitive athlete, of course, that's a main goal. But another really important thing is not injuring yourself and then not injuring another player. Some of the most injuries in fastball actually happen at second base, especially ACL injuries. There was a study, and I couldn't find the research article, but the #1 injury to second baseman and shortstop in fastballs, women fastball, is their ACLs, their knees, and it's usually from being slid into or stopping and pivoting around that base. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. I'm just going to flip back to our PowerPoint so you guys don't have to stare at me as much. I hope you guys are all still with me. Like I said, I can't tell. If not, this will get your attention. So this was before we had, this is me. This was the second time this has happened to me. And yes, I still have most of all my own teeth, like heaven forbid. I was a back catcher, and I pulled my mask up to catch a fly, and the batter turned around with her bat and smoked me in the face with my mask up. I heard the ball go up. You look up as soon as you can, right? Flip your mask off, and I got a bat in the teeth. And I was like 30 here, so it wasn't like I was a teenager. But yeah, another time that happened to me, and I couldn't find the pictures. This is like pre-digital cameras, which I'm aging myself, is I was batting, and I had a left-handed, I batted right. I had a left-handed pitcher pitch me a rise ball inside, and you know the way that it spins, and it hit the inside of my bat, and it smoked me right in the mouth. And I had braces, so it was pretty messy, but I got to keep most of my own teeth, and I was like out in BC or something. And anyways, it was a pretty big mess, but I have most of my own teeth, and here I am. My parents spent a lot of money on dental bills, but I just think I see these masks on the athletes now, and I'm like, do you know how much that would have saved me? I don't know why that wasn't a bigger thing. Like, we had pitchers getting smoked in the head, like face all the time, or first baseman or third baseman. So I don't know if it's mandatory now or not. I haven't played in about 3 or 4 years, but if you have the option, I would encourage you to do that. I don't know, Jody, is it mandatory now I should have brushed up on that.
For pitchers, it is. Infield, I think it's still discretionary in Saskatchewan, but they're moving towards mandatory for all infield at a younger age. Once I think you're 16, it's your choice. But
I can't imagine having like being on third base, creeping in for a bunt and somebody whipping around with a slap in your face. Like that is like you are really close to them and they're smoking the ball still. So I don't know. Does anybody here on the call, I should ask, has anybody here had experience with getting a big facial injury in ball? If you don't feel comfortable sharing, that's okay. Players, coaches, whichever. Just me? I'm the only unlucky one, it looks like. All right, let's keep going.
I can mention, Courtney, like, as a coach, though, we're throwing a lot of pitches to the kids, and we forget about our own protection. And I've got a few right in the glasses or my sunglasses, and not being able to see it. So definitely considering protection for coaches as well.
Good call. Yeah, all those batting practices and stuff that you guys are doing. Maybe you need to throw with more wiffle balls there, Joey.
Yeah, or sometimes I step away from the screen, the protection screen, and forget that it's in front of me and get smacked.
And get smacked anyways. There's no hope, eh? All right, so common injuries in softball, fastball, guys, just throw it out there, anything. What is a common injury that you've had? If it's easier to throw it on the chat, you're welcome to. Oh, here Darren said, I just saw that, Darren, as a coach, he makes it mandatory for my infield to wear the mask. I would agree. I might put my 6-year-old in a mask right now. Common injuries, guys. What are you fighting right now? What's something that bothers you all the time? Rolled ankles. Yep, absolutely. What else?
Wonky elbows.
Elbows. I didn't put it like for your pitchers, Mark, specifically, or like any of your athletes?
Any of the athletes with improper throwing techniques.
When they're throwing too far out instead of over?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Do you find, Mark, I don't know if you coach females or males, but do you find it more predominant in one of the athletes?
My daughter's sitting right here and I'm speaking specifically about her.
Sorry, Mark. I won't put her out then, but it is more common. And being that today's International Women's Day, I'm not putting us down. I think women rock, but it is just, we have a different build up top. It is more common for us to throw out than over. And the mechanics of it are definitely increase your injury ability. Thank you for throwing out the shoulder stuff, guys. I was like, come on, somebody say the obvious. So we got Stacy, Izzy, Grace, and Emma all saying shoulders. Absolutely. Shoulders are a big one. A lot of that Mitch is going to get into. It can be anything from impingement stuff, meaning that the rotator cuff gets really tight or just tired. It can be, and it's really, really common. I'm sure if all my throwers put their elbows up at 90 and rotate their arms back. See, you probably can't tell in my video, but see, my left arm can get a lot further back than my right arm. You get really tight from always going one way than the other. And so you can go further one way down and less the other. And then the inconsistency can injure the back of your shoulders. Labral tears, there's lots of different things. A lot of that comes with exactly what Mark was saying is actual technique. So coaches, that's a big one for you. And I'm, like I said, I'm going to leave this up to Mitch because he's going to go into a lot more detail about this. But a very simple thing is obviously decreasing throw counts off field training and strengthening in the off season. And pitchers too, it's a big mechanical thing and how people are pitching. And now I'm not a pitcher and I won't pretend to think that I know the way to do it, but definitely consulting with the right pitching coaches and doing the research and the proper way to throw different pitches can definitely decrease your injury. I don't know, but what the limits are in pitching innings. I don't know, sorry, Jody, if I'm putting you on the spot here a lot tonight, but is there a restriction on ages and how many innings that you can pitch?
Yeah, I think anything under the U16 age, usually it's three innings or four in a final game or a playoff game. And then after that, after the 7th inning, then they can go back in and it's unlimited. But yeah, there is a limit to certain amount of innings they can pitch at a younger age. Yeah.
And that's simply to protect the shoulder. That's a big one. So we've listed a few. Oh, there we go. There's a lot of different types of injury, acute versus chronic injury. Acute is a word that says or means an injury that happens immediately, like at the present moment. So say the pitcher that got the ball to a face, that is an acute injury. That's something that happened immediately. But a lot of the shoulder problems, unless it's like a dislocation or a contusion, like say a third baseman jumped out and caught a ball and hyperextended their shoulder or something like that, that would be acute. But most often shoulder injuries in ball are chronic, and chronic means something that's lasting for more than 2 weeks. That's the stuff that injury prevention can really nail at. So reducing and completely eliminating those chronic injuries in sport, as a therapist, that's kind of what our main goal is. The acute stuff is a lot about education, but sometimes in sport people do get injured from colliding, balls to the face. There's lots of different things. I kind of went through a bit of this, but one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys is just asking, with not having regular competition last season, are you guys feeling that you're overtraining? Some of the athletes that I worked with last week felt that they were actually undertraining and having significantly less injuries, but they were worried heading into a next heavy season that they would be having a lot of injuries because they're out of shape. I wonder in ball, when I was making up this presentation, I said, I wondered if people are overtraining, because if you were a pitcher, you would just be pitching nonstop and maybe not taking that break, having had COVID. So I guess I'm just going to throw it out there to the athletes out on the call. Do you feel like your injury pattern or the amount of injuries you've had have increased or decreased with COVID? You can just throw it out there on the chat with a thumbs up or thumbs down. And I'm waiting for this one because I'm curious. Thanks, Holly. So your injuries have decreased. Ashlyn has increased. Now, Ashlyn, can I ask if you're a pitcher? Yes, she's a pitcher. So that's something that I was curious about, because you would just be like pitching nonstop. One, because you're bored, you can't do anything. You're not going to tournaments and stuff. My daughters have increased. She's a pitcher. A couple have decreased. Becca's have decreased because she's actually focused a lot on more strength and weight training, which is really interesting. You're basically doing everything that we would like you to do as a therapist. So yeah, that's just interesting how COVID has changed things. You didn't probably take a real off season because you're bored and want to just keep going, and you thought this was a time to get better, which it definitely is, but rest is really important. And obviously they talk to you about that in the sleep training session as well. Just getting back to my share screen here. So risk factors and causes. These are the most common injuries, and I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't have elbow on there. I think of elbows, I see more male upper like pitchers with the like Tommy Johns and stuff like that. But yes, absolutely, girls in fastball and males get elbow injuries. Obviously a lot of shoulder. I'm going to leave that to Mitch. Hip is a big one, an acute injury in your hip. So something that happens immediately. Our hip flexors, a lot of my, I would consider like the outfields or mid infields are making those big explosive lateral movements or running for fly balls, like nonstop, those big running explosive movements, especially in a game. You could be in, say as a right fielder, you could be getting, oh, that's weird that happened. Oh, it went away. You could be getting maybe nothing out to you the whole game, and then all of a sudden one inning, like 4 or 5 in a row, and you're not warm. Maybe it's the 6th inning and you haven't had as much time to run and jump and stuff. So staying warm in between innings is huge to decrease those chronic hip kind of injuries. Knee is a big one, especially in females. A big cause of that is simply just our anatomy. Our hips are wider than our knees, so we tend to land any type of explosive movement with our knee caving in. It's just our anatomy. We're significantly more at risk to injure our ACLs. Have you guys heard of an ACL injury? Give me a thumbs up or a nod or something on your screen. ACL injuries are the biggest reason is, like I said, that deceleration. A lot of our fastball athletes are quad dependent. We say that meaning that your front of your legs are stronger than the back of your legs, meaning you're not training like your hamstrings and the back. We call it your posterior chain as much as the front. ACL injuries for sure. Yes. Thanks, Stacy. That causes a lot of increased injury to your ACLs. A lot of female athletes suffer from what's called patellofemoral pain syndrome. That basically means that your kneecap isn't tracking really well, especially our catchers. So that's a big one with them. Doing a lot of things to stretch out the outside of the leg and keeping your butt strong will help with that. And we'll go into more of that. Yeah, ACLs in volleyball are definitely really common, and trying to get I don't know if I'm saying, is it Martz? That's probably last name. Getting a custom ACL brace underneath your catching equipment isn't a lot of fun either. I've done that too. I've had a couple ACL injuries myself, but it can be done. You can change your brace so that it works. Ashlyn's saying she has patellofemoral pain syndrome. So it sounds like such a weenie injury. You're like, oh, patella syndrome. Yeah, it's super painful. It means that your kneecap is rubbing against the underside of your thigh bone. And if it's not treated well, it goes on forever, right? And a lot of it is from some muscles being stronger than other muscles, but just repetitive movement, and fastball is definitely a big cause of the different mechanics of just the sport cause that. Thanks for sharing, you guys. Yeah, it makes my presentation a lot more engaging when I'm not just talking to myself. All right, we talked a lot about the knee, the head. Obviously, we talked about the face, and then concussions is a big one. Colliding with different players, obviously, like outfield, or when there's a fly in between, like say shortstop and left field, who's calling who off? Who does call who off? Do you guys know? My players, coaches try not to answer for them. If there's a fly ball between the shortstop and the left fielder, who should call the one fielder off? Who should call the one fielder off? You guys know? And like, you guys didn't think you were going to be tested tonight, hey? You're just like, I just wanted to do this so my parents didn't have to. What about coaches? Can you help answer the players for that? No, my coaches are sleeping too. Outfield, thank you. Absolutely. So that's a big communication thing. And a lot of injuries tend to happen there. I don't know why that just really came up in my mind. A lot of injuries. Even when I was looking at some good YouTube videos, I maybe should have pulled one out for you guys to see. There was a ton of major head injuries with two girls, or guys, I should say, looking up, and you're focusing on the ball. You're each calling it. You both think you've got it. One of them has to trump the other, because there was a lot of major collisions there that I just even saw. So we talked about head, we talked about face, ankle, and foot. That was a really big one right off the bat. One of the coaches, I believe, was saying how many ankle injuries there were. A lot of that has to do with surface, and then athletes going from the plastic to the steel toe cleat. Sorry, Jody, do you know what age that's at? Is that junior that you can wear the steel toe?
I want to say you can't use the steel toe at all. And for females, I don't know about the guys. Another coach helped me out there.
Does any of the coaches know? I thought it was 19 and up.
It probably is, if it's even safe in that age group. I know we're definitely not allowed in U23 ladies, I believe.
Maybe,
yeah. I thought we were getting away from that altogether.
U19, it's allowed.
Do they have to be 19, Gerald, or is it just U19? So you're 16 to 19?
Just U19.
I found that's like aging myself, but 15 or so years ago, that's when we were allowed to. And that's actually when the most ankle foot injuries occurred. And the biggest thing is just that different traction. It's one thing if you got your spikes up and you're sliding into somebody unnecessarily, but I'm talking more just the stability of their cleat. I find, at least in my office, you get a lot of that, like a heel spurs. It's called turf toe. So the big toe underneath your foot, there's a big tendon under there, and it gets really sensitive because a lot of the support in a cleat is, I should say, there is no support in a cleat. Some of the athletes will wear insoles, which is a really great idea. And also just knowing and learning to stretch your feet and also rotate the studs in the bottom of your cleat. That's another thing that, at least as therapists, that we encourage people to do. Ankles and rolling, I feel like I can strengthen some ankles till these patients are blue in the face, and a lot of it has to do with positional things. A lot of it has to do with just their own anatomy. So bracing is a big part of that. They're fairly affordable braces. You can get really good ankle braces for $40 to $60. When you think of a physio treatment's like $80, some places, I think it's worth throwing on the couple ankle braces. That can be all of the different positions of your athletes will get those injuries. Fingers and thumbs. I'm sure a lot of the girls on the call today have had a smashed finger, a sprained finger, or an injured thumb. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you've had any of those injuries? Oh, thanks, Joss, for mentioning the U23 for ladies. Mark's given a thumbs up. I should see this other page here, making sure I'm not missing anybody. Come on, you guys, you have to tell me you've had your fingers or your thumbs smashed by a ball or anything like that. If I think there was a bat catcher on here, yep, Jillian Cassidy, you're like, yep, absolutely. Bat catchers, especially when they're trying to frame a ball or when they catch a ball funny, or a first baseman, I should say as well. I'm sorry, I should use my left hand. They'll catch the ball, they'll frame it, and they'll kind of go like this, which I don't know if you're supposed to do or not, but they'll kind of do this, and the ball catches their thumb, and they get that repetitive strain on the inside of their thumb. We call it a catcher's thumb, or sometimes people, like downhill skiers, they sometimes call it a skier's thumb. Anyways, now they make these like custom little thumb splints that you can put inside of your catching glove, in the first base gloves that I've seen. We've got them in for some of our, yeah, dislocated thumb, absolutely. Oh, Stacy, that makes me get the chills thinking of a dislocated thumb. But yes, Joy Lavelle, also plenty of times fingers. So yeah, thumbs are really common. I see quite a few thumbs in baseball and fastball athletes and catchers, pitchers. If the ball just catches you once bad one way, it's not bad enough to stop playing, but man, it just makes your stomach turn when you catch a ball funny after that. There's lots of different ways to tape that as well. I can't imagine how you dislocated your thumb. Repetitive vibration on the thumb hitting, hard to feel from this. Yeah, like right in here you have, I don't know if you guys can feel, if everybody just wants to take a second and feel, like right at the base of your thumb, you have these two little bumps. It's called your sesamoid bone, and it feels like a sesame seed. You have two of them, and you have a tendon that runs in there, and a lot of ball players crush that little bone from repetitive hitting. Or, you know, when you hit a ball really funny and the bat is held right, maybe you're not holding the ball right, bat right, and that constant vibration, and then you hit your thumb bad, oh, that just makes it feel terrible. So different ways to prevent that, obviously, is positioning, and that's big on coaching. Coaches have to really focus on how they're teaching technique to their athletes. And then there's a lot of those different braces and padding that you can get as well. How are we doing, guys? We're over halfway through. What's that?
There's a thumb ring that you can wear that helps for that, for batting.
There you go.
It works well.
There you go. There's lots of tricks out there. So Holly already said one of the best, kind of stole my thunder there right at the beginning, but basically she was talking about potential intervention. So we talked a lot about equipment, talked a lot about coaching, different techniques, common practices for injury prevention. I hope, and it's very common practice now, and I hope if it's not, this isn't the first time you've heard it. And if it is, I'm happy to share dynamic warm-ups, really very, very much strongly decrease injury in sport. There's lots of different science out there to show why. The most important thing with a dynamic warm-up is looking to see which sport and which position needs which type of movement. So a back catcher shouldn't be warming up the same as a left fielder for their entire warm-up. And your pitcher certainly shouldn't be warming up the same as your catcher or your first baseman. You might start a lot of your dynamic warm-up the same, but then as you're getting into actual positional readiness, it needs to be specific to your position. Just like when you're doing a quick warm-up in the infield and outfield before an inning and everybody brings out a ball, it would look really weird if you guys were all taking grounders together. That's why the outfielders should be taking fly balls or running and doing big explosive running, while the infielders should be doing shorter lateral movement, and then the pitcher obviously pitching to take a couple of throws. Sometimes a pitcher will even throw a few in the dirt just to warm up the catcher if they haven't been into that position. As a coach, it's important to look at all of the athletes' different range of motion and just kind of see what is, maybe if you're having every single athlete on your team with these shoulder injuries, okay, well, are they all throwing, or elbow injuries like Mark had said, I think it was Mark, okay, they're all throwing differently. The athletes that are throwing maybe overhead and have better range of motion in their shoulder are getting less elbow injuries. Or, okay, I'm having a lot of elbow injuries, maybe I need to be stretching out our forearm differently to tend to take that pressure off of the elbow. So you can get into some really smart coaches and coaching clinics to get through more information on that. Or you can obviously ask a therapist to kind of break down the skill. And then they would provide an exercise to address some of those different faults. Asymmetry in sport, that's kind of what I was talking about, is how your quad, so the front leg muscle, is so much stronger than your back leg muscle. We often forget to strengthen our hamstrings. So simple things like doing deadlifts, hamstring curls, anything where you're strengthening the back of your body because you're so front dependent in your sport. That is a really, really big thing. And any of your strength and conditioning coaches would pick up on that right away. It'd be the first part of their programming. Recovery periods. We were kind of touched on that a little bit when we were talking about with COVID, how a lot of our pitchers maybe haven't taken a proper break, and you can see how they're getting maybe more, their injuries have increased a little bit. You guys have you had a nutrition session yet, Jody? Okay, so you'll have those coming up and they'll talk to you more about proper hydration, nutrition, pre and post, and then of course sleeping. You had your sleep performance. Now I'm going to talk the most about a warm up and a cool down here. So this is just so that you guys know that I'm not making this up, that warm-ups, dynamic warm-ups are good for you. There's been a ton of research on this going back 15 to 20 years, why it's important. The biggest thing that's come out in the last 5 to 8 years is focusing on the movement quality. So a hockey player won't do the same dynamic warm-up as a fastball player. And each fastball player should do a little bit of a different dynamic warm-up as well. And this is called neuromuscular training program. So basically that's a big long word from making your brain connect to the muscles or the joints by doing a repetitive movement over and over, so that when you're in that position in a game, it's more familiar and it's not like the first time you did it, which will decrease your injury, and it'll actually increase your skill and hopefully performance significantly better as well. I'm just going to go to this video here really quick and explain why practicing proper dynamic warm-ups is so important for injury prevention. If you've had a knee injury, just bear with me here. All right. She misses a couple here, so just give me a second. Just fast forwarding it here because you guys will need to see this. All right. I just want you guys to look at the position of her knees versus her hips. It also was a really cold evening, and she probably was a little bit cool and not warmed up. So the right back right foot planted, and her hips rotated, but her knee and her ankle didn't, and her knee just completely dislocated. I don't know if you guys get squeamish or want to see that again, but that just goes to show how important a neuromuscular training dynamic warm-up is in your sport. And to continue doing it in between innings. I know can be a lot of sitting around and ball depending on your coaching, but this is why you need to keep moving and stay strong. The knee just completely buckles. So that's a non-contact injury, which is 90% of the ACL injuries in female sport. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody with a sick stomach there. I thought that wasn't too gross. We're doing pretty good here, guys. We're 3/4 of the way through. Thanks for kind of sticking it out with me here. So neuromuscular training essentially is a warm-up and cool down. I have a PDF of about 35 to 40 exercises that I will share and send out to your executive director that you guys can all have access to. It goes through, like I said, 30 to 40 different dynamic warm-up and ideas that you guys can make specifically for your athletes. If you're the coaches or girls yourself, you can kind of make it up for yourself depending on what position you are. So things that need to be involved in this is just the science behind it, is aerobic activity, meaning running. So anything where you're getting your heart rate up. Agility, which is quick feet type stuff, upper and lower body. Agility just focuses on different types of balance stuff. Balance is brought into agility. Doing anything where you're crossing your body, so you're standing on your left foot and using your right hand or vice versa, is really good to trigger the brain and increase that neuromuscular efficiency in the tissue. So that's a really, really big one. And any type of strength things that you can add in. So this one about the hamstring kneeling eccentrics, that's the stuff you do with partners. And I couldn't find a good video of it, but I do have it in the PDF that I'll send out to Jacqueline, who can send to everybody. Basically, you're sitting on your knees, and I'm sorry, I'm a video, you can't really see this, but you have your partner holding onto the backs of your heels, and you fall down on your tummy, and then you try to lift yourself up without your feet coming off the ground. So that's why you have your partner holding on to the back. And that's actually tons of soccer athletes do that to decrease injuries in their ACLs. And it is an amazing dynamic warm-up, getting that eccentric hamstring to fire up. So a lot of athletes ask, do I have to do a dynamic warm-up before and after an activity or a competition? I guess I'll throw it out there. Guys, do you do a dynamic warm-up after an activity as well? Brenda, yeah, I do have.
As a coach,
sorry, go ahead.
As a coach, I haven't done anything dynamic after a game, but I can see the benefit of doing it after the game.
Absolutely. The science right now says that you should be doing, basically, you replicate your dynamic warm-up that you did before the game at 20% of the same effort after the game. So say you did a 20-minute dynamic warm-up of 1 minute of 20 different exercises. And that could be like really specific to a sport. That can be just a generic dynamic warm-up. You should repeat that at 20% less the intensity after an activity. So instead of running the whole time, you might do just a light walking knee hug or something like that. Instead of doing lots and lots of karaoke, you might just do a very slow walking lateral lunge where you cross your legs over, like a slow karaoke. And then my athletes that have injuries in specific areas, say it's your shoulder or your hamstrings, that's the time that you would focus on doing your static stretching at the end. But if you had to choose one after, it really is still that dynamic cool down, just at a significantly lower level where you're trying to decrease your heart rate versus increase your heart rate. I'm just gonna take a quick look at the chat here. Brenda, I will send out those examples of the warm-up, no problem. Light stretching is super important after. A lot of coaches will take that time when they're doing the static stretching to maybe go over some game review stuff or practice review. We do a little run and then a stretch. Yeah, just even a really light jog. And in that jog, maybe going down and doing some heel scoops or some walking lunges, some bum kicks, just at a really lower level of intensity is great. After is often neglected, but helps avoid injury. It's a lifelong habit. That's right, Stacy. Yep. And then yes, Emma says she stretches after. So I hope that makes sense, that even if you had to, even if you could do like a 5-minute slow dynamic cool down would be more beneficial at decreasing injury than sitting there touching your toes for 30 seconds and doing that kind of a stretch. Sorry guys, let's get back to the PowerPoint here.
Good opportunity on that, Courtney, is the team meeting, getting out to whatever field that you're having your team meeting and then letting the kids actually do some stretching while you're discussing with them.
Absolutely. It's a perfect opportunity. We kind of talked about this, so I'll go through there. We talked a little bit about this, I guess, in the discussion. A lot of you had mentioned that you guys do a warm up. A rebound balls are really, really big in a lot of the like the rebound boards to be doing repetitive throwing before and after. The best thing about a rebound board is that you're catching something with an eccentric, meaning a lengthening movement on the way back as well as forward, which is really big on decreasing injury. I'm just going to throw this out there now to my coaches and ask if you guys do anything specifically to keep track of injuries and then evaluate, having any type of an evaluation system for those injuries. Or perhaps you have a strength and conditioning coach that does this for you. I'm just looking at the chat here, or feel free to speak in the video. Nobody has something set up. So one of the things that a lot of the strength and conditioning coaches will do is they will monitor and keep track of all of the injuries in a team in a year. And then they'll change their programming, whether it's the way that they're being coached or whether how they're doing their strength and conditioning to help address injury forms, concussion protocol. Those are all key, but actually tracking the injuries, you would be surprised at how a pattern comes up. So perhaps you guys had like 7 games at, I don't even know, they have Reg Banga anymore or something like that. And it was still like May long weekend and it decided to snow, or the weekend before that it started to snow. And then everybody on the team had hamstring injuries. Maybe you would consider some type of different either compression sleeves for your athletes or a different, more aggressive dynamic warm-up, dynamic cool down, heat blankets, you know, like just something you'd be like, you know what, last season this happened. It was really cold and then we got all of these injuries in this one specific spot. Keeping track and then intervening is the most important part of injury management. Doing all these dynamic warm-ups and having all the tools is great, but if you're not actually doing the right stretches for the right type of tissue, it's not going to change anything. If you're getting everybody's hamstrings really loose, but everybody has elbow injuries, doesn't help anybody a whole lot. So have your manager or a parent try to keep track of that for you, because as coaches, you have enough going on. Oh, awesome, Cheryl. If you have a chiropractor who's your team trainer, you're pretty darn lucky. So suggested dynamic warm-up movements. I will just pull that up here really quick for you guys. Just so you can kind of get an idea of some different things you can do. So there's lots of different types. Like I said, every dynamic warm-up will be different depending on the team and the player and the tournament, et cetera, and depends on what you're trying to really hit. But everything that you do, I like to repeat it 10 to 20 times. You don't ever hold a dynamic pose for too long. It's usually 1 to 3 seconds, depending on what you need. A lot of athletes and teams will kind of do it all together. They'll all go down for 10 to 15 steps, and then they'll come back and either do the same thing or something different. I recommend taking 1 or 2 of your players to lead it, so everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Maybe you rotate those players out, it just depends, and then allow 3 to 5 minutes at the end of that dynamic warm up for those athletes to do specific stretches that they need to do for their injuries. So we have lots of things: lunge and twists, reverse lunges, single leg knee drives, deadlifts.
Courtney?
Yep.
Were you sharing something right now? We still see the picture of the video.
Oh shoot, sorry. Yep.
Sorry.
I was sharing it. Let's see. Shoot. Did something wrong there. Do you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, good. So this is what I'll send to you guys. I'll have to change. This was a ring at Sasask one, and I changed and added a bunch of stuff for you guys, specifically way more throwing things. So I'll have to change the title there. But yeah, here's a whole bunch of different ones. At the end, there's some videos as well if you don't understand the actual movement. And there's also a description of all of the different movements as well. I really like this curtsy squat. This gets the outside of your butt and the side of your leg, called your IT band. And that's, I forget what athlete said, they've had patellofemoral syndrome, that knee pain for 4 years. This is a great exercise to help with that knee pain. Lateral lunges, if you do a little skip or a hop in there, that just gives you that, increases the heart rate, gets the aerobic. I'm not sure how many of you guys have ladders at the diamond, but any type of ladder drill is great to do, especially for your mid infield that are doing those really short explosive movements. Curtsy squats, another really good one for that patellofemoral pain. In rehab places, we use a lot of bean bags. I don't know if that's realistic for coaches to be hauling bean bags around. It's just a different type of model in your hand to be moving and weighted in and around, but it's still safe because it's not too heavy. That could be a good thing. Bean bags are also really good for any strength and hand grip, just to warm up on the sideline. If you are like a shortstop, or really anybody, just keeping your hands warm and moving. You can do so many different things with an arm circle. You can go in one direction, both directions, one at a time, both, coming above like a hammer. There's a million different variations of arm circles. Essentially, just get your arms rotating to engage that rotator cuff. Mitch will talk more about that. Here's the rebounder stuff. So maybe for Christmas, all you girls can ask for rebounders, because your coach isn't going to drag that to the diamond every time, unless they really, really like you. But those are great. You can do them with med balls, wiffle balls, real balls. Catching them up in different positions really helps to strengthen the back of the shoulder. Inchworms, there's tons of different things. Skipping rope is great on the side. Getting into this deep squat, that'll help the inside of your adductors or your groin loosen up. Recovering from a groin injury can take 4 to 6 weeks, which is half of your season in ball, depending on where you play, but could be. So there was a ton of them. I can let you guys go through that. I don't have to walk you through every one of them, but if you have any specific questions, I do shoot my email at the very end, and I'd be happy to help you guys out with it. I got 1 minute here. Sorry, Jody.
Very informative. Keep going.
Hope I'm not boring you guys. This was cool. Look at this fastball team. They're doing that curtsy lunge. So not only did I find a fastball team, but they're doing the lunge I wanted them to do. So that's a great one. That we talked about injury tracking. We talked about following up with a therapist, a chiro, a trainer, somebody that has some invested interest that can really follow and track that stuff. That's big. And then comparing it to your skill performance. Are your athletes getting faster at running the bases? Are your pitchers getting stronger in their hips? Can they throw more innings? Can they throw different types of pitches, stronger or longer than they used to? Being able to see not just are we winning, but individually are different athletes improving because of the different type of injury preventions. That's pretty big. Then you know things are working. So I guess key learning points coming from today is correcting technique faults that through movement screening that help prevent chronic injuries. So things like the throwing, if they're throwing really wonky and they're always getting an injury, something that you have to focus on and really encourage your athlete to improve on if they want to have a longer career, right? Most of you girls are pretty young and you'll want to play ball till you're 30 or older, hopefully 40, 50, depends on what kind of ball you want to play. That neuromuscular training, that's that big long word that basically says your brain making the connection to your muscles and your joints, doing it before practice and then post practice or competition, that's also important. And then understanding that recovery is important. So having downtime in between competition and training, sleep, and I know they talk to you about that, but that's something that's so underrated as well, is also very, very important. If you have an injury that's nagging for more than 2 weeks, I'd strongly encourage you to speak to somebody, whether it's a personal trainer, a therapist, your coach. Let your coach know. They probably have a ton of tools in their tool basket to help you. And if they don't, they'll direct you to the right person. Having an injury that lasts 2 weeks is something that could last a whole season and really interfere with your performance. So make sure that you tell somebody about it. And then do the things they tell you to do. Here's my email. This is just my personal email. So you could send one to my work as well if you want. But if you guys have any questions at all, I'd be happy to help you with it. Even if it's a specific injury or, hey, where do you buy ankle braces from? I can definitely put you, direct you to the right people. I'm in Saskatoon right now. We farm in Elrose, but our community here in the province is fairly small in sport medicine. So I do know quite a few really great therapists and different things down south and up north. So if you guys have any questions at all, I'll be happy to direct you. So now I guess I kind of just leave it open. I know I'm at the end of my hour here. Sorry, I don't want to keep you any longer than I was supposed to. I'm 2 minutes over. Does anybody have any questions about dynamic warm-ups or just even an injury that they're dealing with right now? Or maybe you're sleeping.
So got 36 participants, so hip flexor.
Hip flexors, yes, hip flexors. So that, I'm assuming this is chronic, Becca. Hip flexors, that walking lunge where you reach, and I'm sorry if you can't see me really well, I'm in an office, this is weird, but you reach forward, you come into your lunge, and then you reach up and back with a rotation. Now that's a really great way to get the hip flexors in a dynamic warm-up. Also the running stretch, so that's the one, and I'm sorry if you guys can't see me. Oh, it's from dance. Yes, dancers have terrible hip flexors. So you come forward like this. I don't know if you can see me. You come forward and then you reach back as well. So you get your hip flexor as well as the front hamstring. So you kind of get a little bit of both with that one. And that's in that PDF. That's a great one. There's also a lot of really great hip wraps, the hip spicas with the big tensors. Little uncomfortable, but it's great. And then one more thing with the hip flexors is those compression shorts. I don't know if that's cool or not cool, but all my like hockey athletes and my lacrosse athletes and any injured athlete I have with a hip flexor injury, I put them in compression shorts. They used to be Under Armour. Now you can get them in like any style. Everybody has compression and they are awesome for your hip flexor. If it's dance, that's a whole other presentation, by the way. Shoulder popping, not necessarily pain, but grinding. So yes, a lot of females, and I'm not picking on girls, it's just simply our anatomy and the laxity in our joints are supposed to be more lax in males for childbirth. I know that's a long ways off, but we're supposed to be made like that. With that comes increased laxity, especially in our shoulders and our hips, sometimes in our elbows, but really common in our shoulder. It's called multidirectional instability. Big word for saying you've just got a lot of laxity in the shoulder. Really, really important to strengthen the back of your shoulder when you have that problem. So doing any rotational things up and above the body with bands, doing the rebounder is really important. The popping, I know doesn't hurt now, but it will start to hurt later, like if not in 6 months, a year, or 2 years. You have this little cup of tissue deep inside your shoulder called your labrum, and that's the thing that pops. And it's not meant to make that noise for a really long time. So Emery, strengthen the back of your shoulder and maybe reach out after Mitch's presentation. I'm sure he'll have something really specific for that. Anybody else? Oh, you're welcome, Chris. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. I never know when everybody's faces are blank. I'm sometimes like,
Well, thank you very much, Courtney. Appreciate it. If there's no other questions or anything else, hopefully I think the next session, I want to say is on the 15th or the 14th for coaches. But yeah, all in all, thank you very much. That was great.
You're welcome. Good luck with your season, you guys. I really hope you get a normal season this year. Like, really hope.
We should. We're hoping.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.